the government shuts down, the meter doesn't stop. Over 22,000 delays, millions lost, and travelers sleeping in terminals. Some even lost entire business deals worth thousands. But if TSA is still working, where does the real breakdown begin? And what does it reveal about our fragile travel system? We'll show you. What happens when the government stops paying TSA? Lines stretch, scanners beep, agents stare through their screens. When federal funding halts, air travel enters unknown territory. TSA employees are declared essential. That means they keep working, even if Congress doesn't approve spending. But they work without paychecks. In the current 2025 shutdown, about 61,000 of 64,000 TSA staff are deemed essential. This echoes the 2018 to 2019 shutdown. During those 35 days, massive line delays emerged when large numbers of agents called in sick. We decided to test it ourselves. At airports across the US, we stood in line, timed the waits, tracked fluctuations, and compared with prior norms. What we found shocked even industry watchers. You might ask, how could waits get that bad if TSA is still working? That's part of the story. Even before our tests, signs were flashing. The TSA itself warns that long wait times will come if shutdown drags on. Already, some airports report staffing stress and delays. Reuters confirms over 12,000 flight delays in just days, tied in part to controller absences. We hit major hubs: JFK, LAX, ATL, Denver, and others. We recorded lines at peak times. What we saw: waits 2 to 3 times longer than usual. Some passengers started arriving hours early but still missed flights. Midway through, agents told us under their breath, "We're stretched thin." Many are calling off. Morale is low. They promised security won't falter, but the system behind them creaks. In the next chapter, we'll dive into the exact data: how long lines got in each airport, how that compares to normal, and which cities were worst hit. That will reveal how vulnerable even essential service becomes under shutdown pressure. How bad did security lines get? We stood in lines, we watched time stretch, and what we recorded will surprise even veteran travelers. At LAX, Phoenix, Newark, and more, average security waits ballooned. A TSA spokesperson warns, as shutdown enters its first week, longer wait times at airports nationwide are now probable. In past shutdowns, similar trends hit hard. During the 35-day 2018 to 2019 shutdown, hundreds of TSA agents called in sick, sparking mass delays. At Hollywood Burbank Airport, the control tower went dark. A temporary outage forced traffic control to pivot to remote radar, delaying incoming flights by 2.5 hours. In cities like Dallas, Chicago, Nashville, airports report lower staffing, slower screenings, and creeping queues. Normal TSA waits hover around 10 to 15 minutes for domestic flights, but with partial staffing, we clocked lines of 45 to 90 minutes in many terminals. Several travelers in Newark and Denver said they arrived 90 minutes early and still almost missed flights. Reports confirm nearly 12,000 flight delays from Monday to Wednesday were tied to FAA slowdowns and staffing gaps. Transportation Secretary Duffy notes that staffing-related delays now make up 53% of total delays, compared to approximately 5% in normal times. Travel Plus Leisure shares that TSA vowed to screen about 2.5 million passengers daily, but warns the longer the shutdown drags, the longer the lines will grow. Meanwhile, the TSA app's My TSA portal warns it will not be actively managed during the shutdown, so waiting times may go unreported. Some smaller airports fared slightly better, less traffic, easier management, but many major hubs buckled under pressure. If things worsen, travelers could face cancellations, missed connections, or midnight waits at terminals. We'll next examine why TSA and FAA staff call out sick when pay stops, and how that amplifies the chaos. Why do so many agents and controllers call out sick when shutdowns hit? Lines grow silent, towers go dark, and suddenly key staff vanish. In the 2018 to 2019 shutdown, 35 days, TSA and FAA employees classified as essential worked without pay, but many began calling in sick in unusually high numbers. In fact, reports indicate that on day 30, about 10% of TSA workers were absent, versus around 3.1% on no shutdown days. That's triple the normal rate. Why? Money runs out, bills pile up, some workers simply can't survive weeks without income. One officer in Arkansas confided that she had to skip work so she could pick up side jobs just to pay rent. Despite community support, pizza, donated meals, they eventually have to choose between showing up or life outside work. Controllers feel the squeeze too. Though they're also essential, the stress is magnified, taking on fatigue, juggling overtime, and resisting burnout. In the current 2025 shutdown, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy has expressly warned that sick outs among controllers have already contributed to delays in Chicago, Dallas, Denver, and other hubs. At Hollywood Burbank, the tower went unmanned for hours, routing clearance through nearby facilities, a rare but stark sign of how absence ripples outward. These mass absences are more than defiance. They're a system in crisis. In 2018, Congress finally returned after aviation chaos struck, including forced flight limits to LaGuardia, Newark, and Philadelphia, Philadelphia because too many controllers were off. Insider analysts say such sick-outs act as pressure valves, forcing legislative attention. You begin to see the paradox. Agents and controllers are critical, yet when funding stops, the system leans on their loyalty until it frays. You may think essential means always there, but in practice, essential becomes fragile. Next, we'll go airport by airport, exploring which hubs cracked under pressure, which stood firm, and what travelers experienced in real lines. The contrast will shock many. Airport by airport, which hubs cracked and which held their ground. Some airports trembled, others held steady. Why did a few survive while major hubs buckled? Look at Connecticut. Bradley International and Tweed New Haven barely saw disruption, even as giants teetered. That's because Bradley contracts parts of air traffic control privately, avoiding the federal staffing crisis tied to the shutdown. That private setup acted like a buffer against chaos. Meanwhile, at smaller regional airports with less traffic, lines stayed manageable simply because fewer people flew. Contrast that with Hollywood Burbank Airport. From 4:15 p.m. to 10 p.m., its air traffic control tower was unmanned due to controller absences. The FAA shifted operations remotely to nearby TRACON in San Diego. Planes circled, delayed, rerouted. Travelers witnessed empty control rooms. Staff gone, controllers off. That's not hypothetical stress. That's real interruption. Why did Burbank fail while others held? Because local management, union practices, and contract models differ. Where control towers rely purely on federal staffing, delays magnify. Where private operators or mixed contracts exist, stability persists. In Burbank's case, the standard federal tower model cracked under absence of pressure. Also, we saw patterns. Hubs with higher flight density, Newark, Phoenix, Denver, felt strain earlier. Reports show FAA controller shortages affecting those places. In Denver, 29% of arriving flights were delayed. In Newark, 19%. In Las Vegas, 15%. The slowdown is not uniform, but congestion makes it worse. At San Francisco, terms are unusual. Screening is handled under contract, not purely federal. According to KQED, screening or air traffic control services are not expected to be interrupted at SFO because private contracts cover some roles. That gave it extra resilience, at least in early days. So when you choose airports, you're choosing risk levels too. Big hubs are more exposed. Private or hybrid control systems get more breathing room. The difference between Burbank's dark tower and Bradley's steady flow shows how contract structure can make or break your trip. Next, we'll measure what travelers actually lost when lines snarled and flights stalled. Money, time, stress. You'll see the real cost of these delays. What passengers lost? Time, money, stress. They waited hours. They rebooked flights. They lost more than just a ticket. What travelers really paid went far beyond delay. Between Monday and Wednesday of the shutdown week, more than 12,000 flights were delayed and about 200 flights canceled, numbers tied directly to FAA controller shortages. That's thousands of people stuck mid-journey. Every delay breeds added costs. Hotels, meals, missed meetings. One business traveler tells us she was en route to Atlanta for a pitch. She sat in line at security for 75 minutes, then watched her connecting flight depart without her. She spent $450 on a last-minute ticket, missed the presentation, and lost a potential $20,000 deal. Another family flying for a reunion got caught in a 3-hour queue. By midnight, lines were closed, terminals locked, and they ended up sleeping on airport floors. They had no hotel, no compensation, just exhaustion and regret. In major hubs, delays spiked strongly. Phoenix, Newark, Denver all saw delays over 25 to 30% above average. Airlines for America reported over 22,000 delays since Monday morning tied to ATC staffing gaps. That means systems cracked across the board. People lost time, they lost money, they lost confidence. Some had to cancel rental cars, discard plans. One traveler said, "I missed my sister's graduation." Insurance refused to cover the added night. "I paid it myself." Others scrapped side trips. Beyond personal loss, delays ripple. Connections get missed, crew rotations scramble, downstream passengers feel the pinch. The travel economy bleeds each minute of delay. We saw how abandonment of staff leads to chaos. Next, let's flip the view. What can you do going forward? And what this experiment says about how fragile our systems really are under strain. What you can do, and what this reveals about our system. Traveling feels risky now. Many flights delayed, towers unmanned, lines backing up. What you do can keep you safer and show how fragile this whole system actually is. First, arrive early. Not just get there by window, but go 3 hours before domestic, 4 or more before international flights. Because when staffing things, even first-class queues bleed. The Washington Post advises this in shutdown scenarios. Use smaller regional airports if possible. They often suffer less strain. Get pre-check or clear if you can. They help you skip or move faster in security. During past shutdowns, contract screening at airports like SFO held up better because those roles are sometimes run by private firms, not entirely by unpaid federal staff. Always monitor your flight status via your airline app. Changes happen fast during shutdown. KQED notes the TSAs. My TSA app may not be actively updated in a shutdown, so don't rely solely on it. Bring snacks, entertainment, patience, and backup plans. If one flight fails, being flexible may save your day, even if it costs extra. Book refundable or changeable tickets whenever ever possible. Beyond tips, this chaos shows a deeper truth. Our air travel infrastructure, praised as advanced and reliable, cracks under funding stress. Essential services like air traffic control and airport security require money, staffing, and constant maintenance. When funding stops, the system creaks and fractures. Towers go unmanned. Delays surge. Airports scramble to patch gaps. Security still runs. TSA and FAA officers are working without pay. But running a system through forced sacrifice reveals it's not invincible. The safety net isn't guaranteed. It's held together by trust, funding, and human commitment. So before your next trip, think, am I depending on a flawless system or preparing for when it's not? Because when the system cracks, only smart preparation keeps you moving. Thanks for watching and staying curious with us. If you love uncovering the real stories behind travel headlines, hit subscribe and join our journey. More surprising investigations, untold histories, and global travel secrets are waiting in the next video. Don't miss it.